is the person, or what is the person, but more importantly, who could the person be, or what should they be? And that's a very strange thing about people, right? I mean, if you have a cat, you don't really sit around thinking, what could this cat be? Because it's a cat, and you know, if it has offspring, they're going to be cats, and in 1,000 years, they're still going to be just cats. But people, well, we're strange in ways that are virtually incomprehensible, and we're not only what we are, but we're also what we could be. And in many cases, especially for people of your age, you're way more what you could be than what you are. And so focusing on what you could be is an extremely important thing to do. And in fact, there's plenty of research, and some of it's associated with the writing exercises that I told you about earlier, that if you make efforts to define who you could be, and you know, in a way that you find interesting, because you might as well shape yourself into something that you want to be, that increases the efficiency with which you work substantially, and also makes you a better person by reasonable measures of better, which sort of means happier and healthier and, you know, more acceptable, or at least less repulsive to other people. There are two things that you have to take into account when you're thinking about personality, and one of those is how personality stays the same across time, and that's really what gives you your identity and what allows you to identify other people, and then also how personality changes. If you're happy, you're talkative. That might not be surprising, but the fact that those two things are tightly connected was one of the things that was discovered by the factor analytic processes that led to the development of the Big Five. In the Big Five, there are roughly 5 traits, as the name might indicate. Extroversion, which is a positive emotion trait. Neuroticism, which is a negative emotion trait. Agreeableness, which is warmth and empathy. Compassion, the other side of that is kind of a harsh coldness, I guess. Openness, which is both intelligence and creativity. And conscientiousness, which is industriousness and orderliness. Now, there are virtues, so to speak, and faults associated with all of those dimensions. So you can be too extroverted, which makes you rather impulsive, and if you're very extroverted, it's more difficult to get good grades in university because you're always out having fun with your friends and partying. And that might be good in that it'll help you develop a fairly extensive social network, which is a useful thing if you're associated with people who are useful for social networking purposes, but it can really interfere with your ability to sit by yourself and study. If you're conscientious, that's a good predictor of academic success, because conscientious people do what they say they're going to do, and they seem to suffer shame and self-disgust and self-contempt and guilt and so on if they don't. And so the point of all this is that there are 5 traits, and they have positive and negative aspects, especially at the extremes. And these programs are set up, first of all, so that you'll see a series of adjectives that are universal descriptors. In one half of the exercise, a list that represents your virtues, and then in the other half of the exercise, a list that represents your faults.
I want to talk to you today because I hope that of all the talks that happen here, you forget about me, but that this changes your life. And I want to remind you of something as I begin today, that you were born to do something great with your life. That you're extraordinary, listen to me, that you're enough, that you're special, that you're favored, that you're chosen, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what you've been carrying with you. Some of you come in here today, and you know what? You've even thought of harming yourselves. Maybe you're even proud of the fact you haven't killed yourself. But every day, some of us are killing ourselves with the shame we carry from something we've done, some humiliation, some fear. We put this gun to our head every day that tells us we're not enough. We're not strong enough, pretty enough, smart enough, favored enough, that we're doomed. And we carry these guns in our head every day that shame us, that take our confidence from us, that steal our joy. It's like a knife. You don't have to kill yourself because you do it every day. You do it over and over and over again, and there's a better way forward. You can put those things down in your life. You could decide today that you were born to do something great. You could set aside this weapon that you keep using against yourself to hold you back from your joy, from your passion, from your achievement, from all the goodies in life. You could decide today, just intentionally, to set this weapon down, whatever it is. Something from your childhood, a divorce, a business failure, something you're just not proud of that you've done. Set it down. Stop using it as a weapon against yourself and realize that happened for you and not to you. I'll prove it to you. I'm a big believer in fake it till you make it. I don't want you seeing, people say, wow, social media is so full of like these fake lives. People have always lived fake lives. I was living a fake life way before social media came along. In fact, when I became an entrepreneur, I wanted to be somebody so bad. I wanted to be rich so bad. I thought, if I don't look successful, no one's going to listen to me. Who's going to listen to a young kid in business about how to save your money when I didn't have any? That was my own limiting belief. What's yours? You have this kind of convoluted limiting belief about why you can't do something right now. That's this your own BS story you keep telling yourself. How about you just drop that story? How about you just decide it's a lie, even if it is true? I'm not going to just teach you not to tap into your pain. I'm going to teach you how to do it. Okay, I teach people how to change things technically, but I believe in this concept of living blissfully dissatisfied, which means there's a way. Most achievers have it backwards. They think, hey, if I enjoy my success, I'm going to lose all my drive, right? And then other people that aren't successful yet, haven't reached what they want, or they delay their bliss until a destination in the future. Once I get this relationship, once I make that money, once I get that car, once I have that home, then I'll let myself feel bliss. And so I teach you that the concept is you can live blissfully and still be dissatisfied. Your pathway to changing how you feel about yourself, of getting to the next level, is always giving. I have this thing I kind of run my life through that kind of is my governor on my life of when I'm trying to give and when I'm trying to make a difference for people. And I just have this hallucination. I am a Christian, and so I believe that someday when I die, there's an accounting. I'm actually one of these very interesting people that I believe in the quantum field and energy because I know it exists, and I believe my Lord and Savior created it. You have whatever your belief is wonderful. I don't preach. I just want you to know. I know there's an energy field. I know there's a God. I just want you to know that. So you believe your beliefs. I respect them. I admire them. I have people from every belief center in the world on my program. But I just want to say to you, this is my prism I live my life through. It governs my decision making, and I make mistakes all the time. One of the cool things about being a Christian is I'm saved by the grace of God because I know I'm going to sin. That's one of the cool things about my particular faith. But the point that I want to make, because I sin all the time, I make mistakes all the time. I've already used profanity, I think, 4 times in this talk, so I know for sure I've messed some mistakes. But let me tell you how I govern my life. I believe at the end of my life there's an accounting, and I'm going to sit in front of my Lord, and I want him to say, well done, good and faithful.
Well, first of all, a lot of companies don't foster leadership. They don't have a leadership environment. They'll come and say, I love your leadership principles, but I'm not a leader because I don't have the position. In fact, I wrote a book several years ago called The 360-Degree Leader, and I wrote it for that person that, kind of is in the middle, how to influence or lead people above you, beside you, and, kind of around you, that 360 idea, helping them understand that the key to leading people, even if you're not in a leadership environment, is, again, influence. So the question now comes down, then how do I influence people? And if I do influence people, how do I increase that influence? And my answer is very simple. We increase the influence with people when we intentionally add value to them on a consistent basis. Because if you think about people in your life that have a high influence on your life. They've really added a lot of value to you. And so what I share, I do a little simple formula that kind of works, and that is every day, consistency compounds. So you put consistency with intentionality, and you've got a powerful combination. So every day, I basically do 5 things. Every day, first of all, I value people. It begins there. Because if I don't truly value people, I won't add value to them. You don't add value to people that you don't value. You don't add value to anything you don't value. So every day I value people. That's where it starts. But then every day I think of ways to add value to people. So I'll look at my calendar and I look at my agenda today and I realize I was going to be with you. And I think, well, okay, how can I add value to you? What can I do for impact theory that'll, just help? Because again, if you're constantly adding value to people, you're going to be of great value to people. Then I look for ways to add value to people. When I'm in the setting, I'm looking for, okay, what can I do? What can I say? What we see is what we look for. And so if I'm looking to add value, guess what? I'll see ways to add value to somebody else might be beside you, not add value at all to you. But I look for ways. And then number 4, I do things that add value to people. And then number 5, I encourage others to add value to people. And I've just lived that simple formula. I do that every day of my life. It's very simple. And I try to help other people do that, understanding that if they do that, wherever they are, leadership culture, not a leadership culture, doesn't really matter. They'll begin to influence and begin to lead people, and they'll begin to make a difference in people's lives. And I think that's essential. But I think you have to be intentional, and I think you have to be consistent. Consistency compounds. I'm 72. And I've been doing leadership for 50 years. And so when people say, well, how'd you become a leadership guru and all these things that you got? I tell them it's just consistency.
I could do something different and get a different result. So I want that sting. I want to know I tried something and it didn't work because I want to trigger.
Long as you're here, you have a chance to transcend yourself. So don't believe in perfection. It doesn't exist. It only makes improvement. So I would practice every day, every day, every day.
So again, when you think about these guys enhance their abilities. They go beyond and they exceed expectations because it's that mindset of wanting to be great. I think Kobe said it best, and I think a lot of athletes that are, hovering around that stratosphere of being great and considered one of the greatest is that it's a relentless pursuit of greatness.
I think we always have said the easiest thing to do is hold that trophy. That's the easiest thing to do in this process. And that's only going to be for a very short amount of time. The work, the will, the commitment. Like I said, not getting up when you're knocked down. I mean, throughout Kobe's career, in Michael's career, LeBron's career, Dwayne's career, Magic Johnson's career, there's always going to be these struggles that or challenges that you have to get over, and the hardest part is in you trying to be one of the best in the game.
Focus and memory, and I want to look at what I could do differently next time to get a better result. Because I know while other people are laughing at me, I'm laughing back at them because on a long enough timeline, I can be anyone at anything because I can self-soothe. I don't need it to be somebody else's problem. I don't need to point fingers at other people. I don't need to blame the culture. I don't need to blame society. I don't need to blame anybody other than myself. And even that word doesn't have power over me. It doesn't make me feel badly about myself. Yes, I am the cause of this problem in as much as had I done something different, I would have gotten a different result. Now that makes me feel empowered. So now I'm in this powerful loop of taking on the responsibility, saying I can do something different. I can change this. I can get a better result.
And finally, I went over to this radio station, asked a guy for a job named Mr. Birdwell, and I said, how you doing, sir? I'd like to get a job. I was working on Miami Beach at Fontainebleau Hotel at the time. Jackie Gleason and the June Taylor Dancers were famous. And my favorite program on television, most people would not remember, John Beresford Tipton. Hi, my name is Michael Anthony. I have a check for $1 million. How many of you remember that program, all right? The Millionaire, that was my favorite program on television, So if this was my fantasy, and every time we would drive from Miami Beach, I would fantasize, oh, that's the house. When I get my million, I'm going to buy my mother that home over there. So that was my fantasy. So I went up to Mr. Butterball, and he said, do you have any radio experience? I said, no, sir. Do you have any background in journalism? I said, no, sir. I said, but I can never get experience if you don't give me the opportunity. I've been practicing a lot, sir. He said, I'm sorry, we don't have any job for you. I said, thank you, sir.
But I wanted that sting of really staring at my inadequacies, really looking at and analyzing my failure. And then I know, repeating ideas, right? This hurts. With next time I'm going to be better. And I'm not going to sit in that pain for very long because I understand, well, I need a brief moment of pain. If I spend too much time there, I'm going to get lost in the pain and I'm not going to do what I need to do, which is improve. So I never allow myself to wallow in that suffering. I want it, but I want it briefly, just enough to trigger the action. Now, how do I make sure that I walk that fine line? By one very simple thing, a rule in my life that says I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. So if believing that I need to beat myself up and suffer and realize that I'm a loser, if that was going to move me towards my goal, which is fulfillment at the highest level, of course, there are times where you're going to slice that up and it's going to be what are the exact things that I need to do to reach fulfillment.
He didn't know my reasons for being there. My reason, I wanted to use radio as a means to earn the money to buy my mother a home. I went back to the radio station again. I said, how you doing, Mr. Butterball? My name is Les Brown. I know your name. Didn't I just see you here yesterday? I said, yes, sir. I said, y'all have any jobs here? Didn't I tell you yesterday we didn't have any jobs? Yes, sir, but I thought maybe somebody got fired or resigned. I don't know, sir. I went the next day. How you doing, Mr. Butterball? He said, yes. And I just didn't take it personal. How you doing? So y'all have any jobs here? Didn't I just tell you yesterday and the day before we didn't have any work? I went the next day, showed up like nothing was wrong, like I saw him for the first time. How you doing, Mr. Butterball? Y'all have any? He said, boy, make yourself useful. Go get me some food. I said, yes, sir. See, many times when you want more, you've got to be willing to pay your dues. So I became their errand boy. I would get their lunch and their dinner and all kind of food for them. And after a while, I would take the food to them in the control room, and I would not leave until they would ask me to. And I'd watch them working the controls, and I'd memorize their hand movements. And pretty soon they would trust me with their cars to go pick up entertainers.
There's going to be a tension with it. Right, you're put on pedestal, and you fall even harder when you do. So I really had to learn how much you have to prepare, you have to live it. You have to want it so bad to where you'll sacrifice those Saturday nights or Friday nights with your friends. You'll sacrifice if you're in high school or something and the dance is this week, if there's more dances I'm going to the gym, this is what I'm going to put my time into because this is what I want. And being around all of those great players, getting to see their commitments, see their rituals, see how much they put into the game.
If you just stay on course, it'll take you further than you can ever imagine. I think for me personally, what set me apart, I think from everyone else, is that my dedication and my discipline and just the execution of being consistent is what put me in a different stratosphere, just put me on a different level. And I think people were able to see that. Sometimes, like I said, I didn't want to just blend in. I wanted to stand out. When you start to become successful,
character is the person you are after you've chiseled and have gotten past all the unnecessary material to what's underneath. But since we're usually surrounded by other people, let me be a little more specific about how the differences between a charismatic person and a person with character can play out in the real world, particularly in leadership situations. Here are 4 sets of circumstances that can easily occur. First, a really charismatic person can make people believe there's pie in the sky, or that the sky is going to fall tomorrow, one just as easily as the other. By creating these expectations, charismatic individuals can indeed energize and inspire others, or terrify and demotivate them, until the overblown scenarios are proven false.
It was second to none. Always take those processes. If you have a goal, there will be obstacles. In your way, you can climb them, you can run around, and you can do everything, but you're going to have to put the work in to make sure that you accomplish your dreams. The most critical piece of advice that I've ever gotten, and I won't name who, is from a coach. One day, all he said, and paint the picture for you, I was a rookie. I'm 19 years old, I'm playing with guys old enough to be my dad. I'm getting thrown around, I'm playing a level of basketball that I'm barely hanging on by a nail with, but I'm one of our best players, so I'm playing every night. I want to go home, I'm not used to the cold.
You're not going to be 100% liked by everyone. There's so many layers and so many elements of being a professional athlete and being in that sport. You're going to be subjected to criticism, whether you do good or bad. People are going to talk about you, good, bad, or what have you, but you have to be strong-willed, and I think that's who and how I was, and I think a lot of that, like I said, stemmed from the upbringing of my grandmother. But at the end of the day, I think an athlete, again, to get to where you want to be and the process in which it takes to get there, you have to be addicted to bettering yourself. You have to be addicted to bettering yourself. And that's what I became. You have to have a relentless pursuit of really just perfection, greatness. Obviously, it boils down to my 3 Ds: desire, dedication, and discipline.
And the charisma runs out. But a person of character doesn't need to be anyone's Pied Piper and isn't comfortable in that role. Instead, he or she looks within for the true source of inspiration and energy. Second, a charismatic person can inspire devoted or even fanatical loyalty. But this can all too easily turn into an unconscious sense of dependency, and that can make matters difficult when the leader is no longer available. Like a charismatic coach, effective during the glory years, but when he leaves the organization, there is a sense of abandonment, and the team may never achieve anything like its prior success. Powerful personalities often resist delegating authority, but it's an attitude of character for a leader to refrain from making himself or herself the indispensable heart and soul of an organization.
I'm just kidding, I'm getting beat up, but I wouldn't quit and I was looking for this piece of advice from someone. And all they told me was just like they would always tell me, hey man, keep going, just keep going. All the time, every time, and you know I got so mad because I'm looking for that euphoric feeling from the piece of information that they're about to give me, right? That's why I think we all kind of struggle sometimes, looking for that and putting too much pressure on the situation. But as I got older, as I continued to train, as I continued to not give up and not let a loss define me or my character.
Success breeds contempt. You'll know you're winning when they start hating you.
See, many people, they think that when they face resistance, that somehow now that God has left them. Because if you're not facing resistance, maybe it's an indication that you're going in the same direction as your enemy.
If nobody's hating you over it, it's not big enough. You'll know it's big enough when they start hating you for it. And nothing you do satisfies them. And nothing you do calms them down. That's a sign that you're getting ready to get in a net-breaking blessing.
Think of it like this. For every peace stealer you allow in your life, you are 20% more likely to live stressed, to have a crisis. I'm asking you to find happy friends. I'm not saying you have to cut people off, never speak to them again. I am saying you should put up some boundaries. You don't have to make a big announcement. Just little by little, spend less and less time with that person. If you don't get the wrong people out of your life, you'll never meet the right ones.
You got to look for the good. You don't have to look for bad in life, but you have to look for the good. Well, my friend really disappointed me, but at least I learned to put my hope in God more than in people.
Get yourself situated. Pick the right location to live in. Get your marriage ready, because God's going to bless you until the devil leaves you.
The people who are closest to you need to be stable, happy, responsible people that move you towards your destiny. Like iron sharpens iron, you make each other better. Who do you have in your life? What are you giving your time and energy to? Trying to keep someone happy? Feeling guilty because you can't meet their demands? That's going to wear you out. It's time to make a change. You can't please everyone.
You got to surround yourself with people who have talents and skills, not just people who love you. I'm glad you love me, but loving me won't bring these fish in. I want to know, can you carry some weight? I'm talking about somebody who can carry the weight when the net is about to break. You are carrying so much weight and so much responsibility that you are at the breaking point. And you can't even tell anybody that you're at the breaking point because you have a Superman complex and you're trying to be there for everybody. But the reality is the weight of what you're doing is breaking your neck.
Do you define yourself by your emotions? Do you define yourself by your status? Do you define yourself by your lowest point? Do you define yourself by your highest achievement? All of that is dangerous. Because the moment you start believing that you are what you do or you are what you went through, there's a bleeding on the inside that happens when your sense of self-worth flows from what you do and what you go through.
You can't become so dependent on people that you're getting your worth and value out of how they treat you. It's easy to become addicted to compliments, addicted to encouragement, addicted to them cheering you on. Now you rely on them to keep you feeling good about yourself, to make you feel approved. Like a drug, if they don't keep you fixed, meet all your expectations, you get discouraged. The problem is you're trying to get from people what only God can give. Your worth, your value doesn't come from another person, it comes from your Creator. If you rely on people, you'll be disappointed. People will let you down. Sometimes people will even turn on you.
You have no idea what's in you. Do you have any idea what God has invested in you that you haven't even touched yet? Do you understand that the problem that you're grappling with right now is not even the issue? It's just training for you. The lion that you're fighting with now is not even the issue. God just allowed the lion to come in your life so you'd have something to work on. The lion is not important. It doesn't even matter. God is training you with the lion. God doesn't even care about the lion. He cares about you. He's using the problem to get you ready, to teach you patience, to teach you how to trust him with no money. He's prepping you for the next release of glory so that when folks start walking out, they can walk out if they want to. You say, I know how to do that too.
There's so much we're learning right now. We may not know we've learned it until way on the other side of it. You don't really realize life lessons until later. You know that, right? It's later that you say, oh, it was good for me that I was afflicted. Oh, it's good for me that they told me no. And it's later that we see the lessons. A lot of times it's later that we see the lessons.
Why don't you let the people in your life off the hook? Maybe they did the best they could. They may have made decisions that you don't understand. Feels like it put you at a disadvantage, but you didn't have to walk in their shoes. Bottom line, nobody owes you anything. God is keeping all the records. He has seen everything that's happened in your life. The injustice, the person that did you wrong, those people cannot pay you back. They cannot make you whole. Only God can.
The lesson of letting go is not only that external events cause us to let go. The way God changes us is transformation from the inside out. Isn't that really relevant while you're stuck inside? That's the way God changes things?
Quit trying to get somebody to apologize, to admit they were wrong, to give you what they don't have. If you'll go to God, He'll bring you out better. He'll make the rest of your life more rewarding, more fulfilling than it would have been if that hadn't have happened in the first place.
You gotta grow. You gotta expand. You gotta know that you're here for a purpose. There are no mistakes. There is a meaning. Even if you haven't found it yet, you must discover it. And you know what? For most people, they don't discover the meaning of their life until their life is over, or until somebody very close to them that they love is about to leave them. You don't have to wait for the pain to discover the meaning.
It first starts with decision on your part. And may I add, well, you should decide. Why let worry continue to take money out of your pocket and bank account? Why let worry any longer keep you from becoming all you can be? Why let it rob you of better friendships, better family relations, better profits, better results? It's a burden you can get rid of. Why not be rid of those sinking, nagging feelings that all is not going to be well, that you can't do it, that it won't work out for the best? Worry is undue concern that takes up too much of your mental and emotional time.
So how will I know when I found the purpose of my life? You decide what it is. You discover it and you decide this is it. Maybe later on I'll refine it. I probably will. But for right now, this is why I'm playing the game of life. This is what it's about. Every day, if I'm just being this way, if I'm just doing these kinds of simple things, then I know I'm on track. I know there's a reason for my existence.
And so although you may believe it to be true about you, these doubts and negative thoughts you have, these were not your original thoughts. That's a powerful thing to understand because you weren't born this way. You weren't born doubting. You were born perfect. You were born believing you were going to do something great. You were born believing you were going to do something special with your life. As a baby, I promise you, you had no negative self-talk. You had no negative self-doubt. These are external sources. There's somebody else's thoughts they gave you because of how they felt about themselves.
If you're offering words of wisdom to someone in the genuine attempt to help and they treat that with contempt, then shut up because you're demeaning your words by throwing them away.
Self-confidence is self-trust. Self-confidence is building a reputation with yourself that you keep your word to you, that you keep the promises you make to you. Somebody with self-confidence has a reputation with themselves that I do the things I say I'm going to do. And so the cool thing is self-confidence is an internal game. You do not need external accolades, external admiration.
in order to build self-confidence. You don't need any of those external forces. It's all done internally. You control this. And you control this by beginning today to keep the promises you make to yourself. It's not good enough just to keep the promises you make to yourself. You must acknowledge it when you do it to you to give yourself credit to create confidence momentum.
Expect the constituents and the comrades to leave you and desert you after a while. Don't be upset when they don't react to your dream the way you expected them to, because they were never really with you in the first place.
Recreating you, and you have the power to do that. You can decide that you're going to change, that you're not going to be a wimp. You can decide that you're going to stand up to life. You can decide that I'm going to live each day as if it were my last. You have the power to make that decision. You can decide I'm going to work on myself and develop myself. I'm going to empower me. And all of these things that are happening to me right now, they're just temporary inconveniences. They're not stronger than I am. I'm in charge here. Next thing is separate what you do from who you are. That's what the guilt trap is about. See, a lot of folk won't let you forget what you used to do or what you have done, what mistakes you've made. All of us have made some mistakes in life. All of us have done some things that if we had them to do over again, we wouldn't do it again. A lot of things that if I had it to do over again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done it differently. Well, it didn't happen that way. And that's what you call life. I didn't do it like that. Oh, you don't want me to live that down? How you want to keep on putting that in my face about what I did? Guess what? I'm not interested. That's what I did then. Won't do it today, so you are picking on an innocent man. Hello. So as you're in the process of reinventing your life, write a description of the kind of person that you want to be. What are the things that you must overcome? What qualities about your personality you know that you're going to have to change because those particular characteristics are liabilities to you? What are your assets? What are your strong points?
Your identity, your personal worth, the thoughts, concepts, and attitudes and beliefs you hold to be true about yourself are the thermostat of your life. They regulate everything. You have a money thermostat, a relationship thermostat, a fitness thermostat. And what happens in people's lives is they change the external results short term. No one's going to tell you this other than me. They start to change their conditions. I'm reading these books. I'm buying these properties. I've made a little bit of money. And your results begin to exceed. You start getting 85 and 90 degrees of results, but you didn't do the work to change your identity. You didn't change the thermostat your life is set at. And guess what starts to happen? I watch it over and over. You will thank me for this right here someday soon. The results get a little higher. They're 85. I closed a deal. I made a little money. I closed another one. I made a little money. I got this going. I've lost 20 pounds. Whatever it is. The results start to get higher than their set thermostat temperature. And guess what you do unconsciously? You don't even know you're doing it. You turn the air conditioner on of your life and you will cool it back down eventually to get it right back where you're comfy, 75 degrees. Same thing happens when it goes bad. You're broke. The water's turned off. The power's turned off. Your car gets repossessed. They dynamite your property. You find a way to turn the heater on and get it back. The key to life is not the knowledge you learn. You have to have that. Knowledge is not power if it's not applied. The key in life is changing that internal thermostat. And if you don't change that, listen to me. It'll seem coincidental. Yeah, something happened to the property. There was a bad rain. Construction costs went up. The market conditions changed. The interest rate went up. No. It's not coincidental. It's not. You cooled your life back down because you didn't do the work on who you are. The thing I have in my life is I associate with higher and higher identity people more and more and more in my life. That's what this group does for you. Begin to power of association. The people you associate with heat you up. If any of you that are religious, if you weren't fit, let's say you hung around someone in this room that's super fit and you were out of shape. You can't be around that person constantly and not start start to eat differently. You start to think differently. If you're a person of faith, you're around someone who's a high thermostat temperature person of faith, you're around them all the time. You start to behave differently. If you're a man in the room and you start to hang around guys who are true to their wife and love their wife and are faithful to their wife and compliment their wife and hold their wife's hand, they do all that stuff. They date their wife. You can't help but change your thermostat. Same with money. You don't think Sylvester Stallone and Phil Knight and John Elway and Tony Robbins had an impact on me?
But most of all, success is making your life what you want it to be, considering all the possibilities, considering all the examples. What do you want for your life? That is the big question. Remember, success is not a set of standards from our culture, but rather a collection of personal values, clearly defined and ultimately achieved. Success is your better life for you, the design you give it, the dreams you accomplish. Making your life what you want it to be for you, that is success. One morning at breakfast, shortly after I met Mr. Show, he asked me if he could see my current list of goals. He said, "Let me see your list of goals, and let's go over them and talk about them. Maybe that's the best way I can help you right now." And I said, "I don't have a list." He said, "Well, is it out in the car or at home somewhere?" I said, "No, sir, I don't have a list anywhere." He said, "Well, young man, that's where we better start." Then he added, "If you don't have a list of your goals, I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s, which he did, and that got my attention. I said, "You mean that if I had a list of goals, that would change my bank balance?" He said, "Drastically." That day I became a student of how to set goals. And sure enough, when I learned how, my whole life changed. My income, my bank account, my personality, my lifestyle, my accomplishments.
So their lifelong dream is to have the restaurant experience, but their idea of the restaurant is based by what goes on in the front. And then they get hired, and now they're working in the back where there's pushing and shoving, and you find out who comes late and who you can't depend on. And so-and-so's real anointed, but they also are a liar, and they get on your nerves, and they're egotistical maniac. Can I be real up in here this morning? And they're like shocked and flabbergasted and saying, "Oh God, I'm gonna have to leave this ministry. I never thought in the world." Baby, you signed up for the restaurant, but we hired you in the kitchen. And I'm just wondering, have you hired your customers? Because they find those type of people sign on and they come on to have these grandiose spiritual extravagances. They want to have this moment. It's like people who move to your church because you were in a conference, because they think the conference goes on every Sunday. And then they come back a few Sundays and all them extra people are not there. Israel Houghton is not singing this morning. It's Clarabelle Wilson. And she just a skipping and a singing, and she can't sing worth jack, you know? And they say, "Where is Israel?" Israel is gone, baby.
If you know the road ahead, you have an incredible power called anticipation. Anticipation is the ultimate advantage. See, winners, leaders anticipate, losers react. The reason you get beat is you don't know where things are happening, so you're reacting. Reaction is always stressful. And yet so much of our life is predictable if we just were to study it, not be caught up in our day-to-day. It's predictable the challenges you're gonna have in your relationships, or with your kids, or with your body, or with your job, or with your economics, or with your mother-in-law or father-in-law. These are predictable. And if you would anticipate these things and put a strategy in place, you could take it all out and have the quality of life that you deserve. In business, it's everything. Those that anticipate, those that lead, and then there's those that follow. The followers are the reactionaries. So the more we can anticipate, and you can't anticipate and lead unless you first learn how to lead yourself at a different level. And so I love to have you just see that if you and I can start to take control of our focus, and we can start to take control of the meaning of our lives and make something really that meaning that empowers us, because look, what's wrong is always available, isn't it? There's always an Ebola, a bird flu. There's always something that's going to kill the entire human race tomorrow on TV. And then there's your life. What's wrong is always available, and so is what's right. And you have to take control of that focus, because otherwise you become the follower and you get to live your life. Even though you're a smart person, we're all smart, but it's easy to get led astray by everybody else's focus, isn't it? And then all of a sudden let them create the meaning for us. And then all of a sudden we're settling for a life far less than what we desire or deserve. So my approach is really simple. My approach is to say, let's, you and I, just for a few little time we have here. By the way, this to me is a little time, a couple hours, 2.5 hours, I guess, at this stage. Because kind of the minimum length of seminar I do is 50 hours, 50. And you go, are you kidding me? I don't like to hear myself talk. I like to see people do things so often they build muscle, not just thoughts. And so one thing I'm going to ask you to do in a few minutes is we're going to go from this passive mode that you're in right now into full engagement. Because if you get fully engaged, it's amazing what you can accomplish and do. When you're partially engaged, you get a little bit of result. When you're disengaged, we all know what you get, nothing. And we live in a society where most of us are so overwhelmed. There's so much information. We're not having any problem with information. We're being drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom. And so we got to separate it out. And so one way to separate it out is I'd like to talk to you about 3 things that can help you increase your performance and your life. Because what I'm obsessed by and have been for 37 years is what can increase performance for an individual or an organization. But also I'm equally obsessed about what's going to make somebody fulfilled. Because who's had this horrible experience? Who here has ever achieved your goal and then your brain said, is this all there is? Who's had this experience here? Say, I. And that's worse than failing. At least when you fail, your brain can say, I can figure this out and do it again a new way. But when you succeed and you're miserable, you're basically technically screwed.